It's Kisha here with Defending the Early Years podcast. We'll be focusing on amplifying the voices of early childhood educators, advocates, and all of those who love children.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast with Keisha Reed. Today, I am so excited to welcome Monica Weedle Lubinsky. Monica brings over 2 decades of leadership in nature-based education. She's the founder of ANBE, the Association for Nature-Based Education, which is formally and widely known as ARAFAN, Eastern Region Association for Forest and Nature Schools. She's the author of Nature Play Workshop for Families and, super exciting, recently authored a brand new book, Nature-Based Early Childhood Education. Her passion for nature does not stop in the forest. She takes her passion and knowledge all the way to Washington, D.C., as she fought for outdoor preschool licensing legislation. And Monica, I want to warmly welcome you because you are like a giant lady. You're doing amazing
Aw,
work.
aw, that's nice to say. Thank
It's
you.
very true. And I love that you're doing the work and on the ground at the same time. Like you're doing the work behind the scenes and you're doing the work with the children. So I
Mm.
want you to just, I'm curious about where this all came from. Like what drives this passion? What's fueling you?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. For me, I wish I knew exactly what drives the passion or where it came from, but what I can say is that there's been this kind of unquenchable desire to help children connect with nature for me ever since something woke up in me and my own nature connection as a young adult. I feel so much joy. And for me personally, I feel healthy and well and regulated and, full of wonder when I'm in nature and I see what it does for children. So to me, I just feel this urgency for children to have these experiences. And I think that combined with all that's going on in our world regarding climate change and just pressing environmental issues, it just feels so important that we need children to just love nature, love the world they live in, get to know it really well, have their own relationship with it, so that as they get older, as they grow up, and, as it's developmentally appropriate, there are so many ways kids can take action. And we definitely see that all over in the United States, but of course, all over the world. So I guess it's this combination of how nature makes me feel and how I have witnessed children just flourish and thrive in nature in all kinds of settings. And I feel like it's important. It's not a nothing. It's not a fun, warm and fuzzy thing that some people just like. It really is essential to our health and our well-being for our species to survive, for our planet to survive. It's so much bigger than that. So yeah, I guess that's as quick as I can summarize
Yeah.
that point.
Yes, and that's the thing. I think when we say, this is like rescuing humanity, this is real important work. Um, I don't know if people outside of this work really understand that. So I'm super excited to have you here because the work that you've done is really going to make this accessible to lots of families who previously didn't have access to nature-based education, especially with the work that you're doing in Washington. So, was nature a big part of your childhood? Is this something that you have personal roots experiencing?
I love this question because the truth of the matter is, I wouldn't have considered my childhood an outdoorsy one. Not like some people have, where maybe they grow up going to the ocean or they grow up camping with their family or they're in the woods or growing up on a farm. I didn't grow up with any of that. Had a very suburban childhood outside of DC. And the neighborhood was just tightly knit. I could go 5 doors up and hop the fence, and I was at my best friend's house, and we all rode bikes together. It was a very suburban kind of setting. I will say that there was a culvert that ran under the street that we called it the ditch. And the ditch was kind of this overgrown wild space that me and my friends would play in. But I didn't know that those things swimming around were little minnows or tadpoles. I
Mhm,
didn't know what those crayfish were, but I understood that if I picked one up, I might get pinched.
mhm,
I had opportunities for nature connection and that I took advantage of. I also had parents who, my mother always maintained a tidy little garden in the front, and I was required to pick weeds in that little garden. I loved when her daffodils would come up, and my dad grew a patch of mint at the side door, and he taught me how to taste that. And so, I looked for that. And so there were definitely nature pieces to my childhood, catching fireflies and um climbing the tree in the front yard. There was a maple tree in our front yard that I really loved. And there were definitely nature pieces to my childhood, but I wouldn't have considered it outdoorsy. And as I got deeper into this work and I realized the disconnect that's happening for a lot of people because of safety and concerns around crime and things of that nature, it made me realize that there are millions of children with experiences like me that just walk outside and sit on a stoop, but there may be a patch of mint right there, or there may be the potted, flowers. There are big nature elements everywhere for all of us to not only enjoy, but to experience benefits from. And I think a lot of times teachers or parents that have limited access to really wild, wide open green spaces, they feel like it isn't available to them. And I've always felt that it is. And it may just require us to change our perspective, right? Think about it a
mhm.
little bit differently. And there are also systemic barriers, and there are also real issues of crime that warrant our attention and that we need to address to be sure that everybody can safely access nature. But we're already a part of nature. We're
Yeah.
already here. We're living here,
Mhm. And
So
that's what,
it
as you were talking, I was thinking that it's innately in us to find nature. Like you can be walking down a city street, and the child is going to point to that plant that's going in the crack. I mean, it is in us to find nature. So when you're talking about you found that culvert, we did the same. You found this overgrown patch, and that's where you played. That's where you were drawn to. So it is true that nature's everywhere. We are nature. So it's like we feel that connection innately. So it's a beautiful thing to know that this can happen anywhere. You don't need to have a program that's on acres and acres of land. You don't need to be in the country. You can be in the city. My husband and I often talk about his childhood, and he's from DC. He's from the city. He lived in a project housing, and there was this strip of trees between his neighborhood and the shopping center. And we laugh when we go back and look at how thin that strip of trees is. But he said, as a child, that was a jungle. Like they spent hours and hours in that strip of trees, climbing trees, looking at bugs, all of the things. So it doesn't take much, but it does take um, access, right? It takes either someone bringing you to this space or you having the freedom as a child to go there. You got to leave the house.
And you know what you're saying is actually, I'm glad that you framed it that way, because in the book that just came out, which is the Nature-Based Early Childhood Education, which is the one that's published by NACE, and I actually
Woo-hoo.
refer to this little trifecta of time, space, and permission, because you
Mm,
really need all three of those things, right? You
yes.
first need to not be overscheduled in your life, going from thing to thing.
Mm,
You need space to actually move about and explore in whatever that area looks like for you. And you also need that permission from whomever has to grant it, right? In some cases, that's a parent, but in some cases, and in many cases, it's a teacher or a childcare provider. So
Mhm.
all three of those matter.
Yeah, permission's a big one because I've been in early education environments where nature's there, right? It's right under their feet, but they are not allowed to touch it. They are not allowed to explore it. They cannot get dirty. They cannot,
Right.
um, and that is such a hindrance. So I think some of your work is educating the educator, and I think that is the key to some of this, informing parents and early educators. So can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of your work?
Yes. I, after working at a beautiful little nature center for almost 20 years, it was very important to take what little I knew some things, but take what I knew and help other teachers find a way to apply it in their own settings. Because again, this work happens in all different kinds of settings, and we don't want to limit anyone. Anytime we can just sort of move the needle a little bit is going to be beneficial for children. So part of my decision to leave that wonderful nature center and start an organization that would be focused on professional development and examples of nature-based education was precisely for that, to build capacity for this work and really help teachers feel supported, right? I think teachers sometimes feel like they have to be the expert, or they have to know all the things like a naturalist would know. Maybe they feel like they themselves don't want to be held to account if something goes wrong. And so, how can they protect themselves or partner and collaborate with administrators or other organizations to do what they really hope to do with Nature Connection, but in a really safe way? And there's a lot of different considerations for teachers. It's big if you're not already doing it, and if that's not how your program was established. So yes, I mean, founding ANBI was really in service of teachers to help grow these networks. And sometimes, I talk about it too as all of us being sisters in the work, which I don't want to be sexist, because we want everybody to be represented, of course, males and females. But a lot of times, the majority of the people that we're working with are women, and they're women who have been working hard in on boots on the ground with kids that really have barely any time to look up from their caregiving, to do bigger advocacy, to take care of themselves, to connect with other teachers, to hone their craft. It's really challenging for a lot of the educators and childcare providers who are just doing this work. So having something that feels really supportive, that, an organization even built into teacher training, where you feel like you're wrapping your arms around these educators. Yes, you're giving them tools, but you're also helping to validate what they already know and believe is true about being outdoors with children, really validating those benefits that they're seeing, and continuing to fuel, give them deeper and more, round out those corners, right? Find those blind spots in one's teaching, and help them to just keep honing their craft. I just feel like it's so important, and that's what we aim to do.
Mhm. And I can attest because I have attended your level one nature-based education training a couple years ago, and it was such a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed the depth, the hands-on, the active learning that happened there. I met some wonderful other early educators, which, by the way, opened my eyes to the amount of people who are doing this in this
Mm,
region and throughout. So it's
mm,
really a shift that we're seeing right now in early education. So I know that your work has largely affected that, so much so that Maryland is now working on a pilot outdoor forest school program. Can you tell me or tell us? I'm super interested a little bit about that process because I mean we talk about advocacy and there are lots of different ways to advocate and then there are the ways that go straight to straight to it and I feel like you have done that. how
Aw.
how did that come about? What is that process like? Because I know a lot of people want to make change, but we may not know how to make those big major changes.
Yes, it's all a process. So, again, I think like most people, I certainly hadn't advocated for legislation before this issue was in front of me, and I felt like we needed to do something about it. So, I would have to say I am still learning as we go, very much so. But as far as how it happened, Washington State was the first to license fully outdoor nature-based preschools. And I was sitting kind of on the sidelines shortly after we established ANB and was watching that unfold. I knew that Maryland was the first in the nation to have environmental literacy standards for pre-K through 12. And us being in the Chesapeake Bay region, we're really well positioned. We have a lot of support for just environmentally based programs. Um, I just it seemed like the obvious thing that we needed to do something similar in Maryland, and I wanted to just kind of get that moving. I wasn't sure if anybody else was going to have the bandwidth to do it, and no one was kind of raising their hand, and I felt like, okay, well, if not us, then who? We got to just see what we can do. One thing though that I want to point out is sometimes people are like, well, why? Why does that need to be licensed? I already know of nature preschools and they're licensed. Like, what is it you're trying to do? The difference here is if you have a building, then there is square footage that can be measured, and you can see what the temperature of the milk is in the refrigerator. And there's a way that licensing is already able to license a program if it has a building. So most nature preschools, they might have a building, or maybe they're attached to a nature center, and they can already be licensed through standard licensing because they have an indoor space. The outdoor preschool licensing initiative is for people that say, we don't use a building and we don't want to use a building. These are outdoor classrooms and they're fully immersed in nature. So think something that might happen in a park, something that might happen on a farm, something that happens just completely 100% outdoors, except for emergency shelter spaces, which of course we have to have, but it's only outside. There's not an indoor classroom to go into. So those are the programs that I'm talking about right now, because those other ones that have an indoor space can already be licensed through traditional means. We can build capacity for childcare for those areas and those people that want to run a fully outdoor preschool. And this has been done for many years now successfully in Washington State, even including things like outdoor diapering, outdoor toileting, outdoor napping, right? Hand washing. I mean, all those protocols are still in place. Safety protocols and emergency planning, all of that is still there. So the outdoor preschool piece is really focused on a forest school model, meaning it's completely outdoors, it's immersed in nature. So back in 2020, prior to COVID, I made a call to the Office of Child Care in the Maryland State Department of Ed. And the hope was there to first just start a relationship, start a conversation, and see if this is something that they might be interested in. Because in Washington State, they had someone already working within their state agency who wanted to spearhead this initiative. So it was coming from their state, if you follow. Whereas in Maryland, it was an outside group saying, hey, we're getting this advocacy group together, and we believe in this, and we would like to see it available to more children. So we want it to be licensed. And in that conversation, it was clear that the state didn't understand at all, wasn't interested in pursuing it, felt overwhelmed, and didn't feel they had the capacity to deal with it. They weren't going to pursue it. So that led us to organize a coalition. Again, it's really important that it's not just me who's leading this charge. It's not just one person who's leading something like this. It has to be about reaching out to lots of organizations who are vested in accessibility and wellness and all these benefits of outdoor preschool. So we gathered a group of over 100 to 150 organizations and individuals who wanted to see this move forward to try to start this advocacy. in that conversation, we realized that we wanted to reach out to our local delegate and introduce the delegate to what this even looks like. So in this case, it's Michelle Guyton was the delegate, and she came out to one of the forest school programs. And there I was able to explain, when these programs aren't licensed, really what it means is children who need subsidies to attend a program, this isn't an option for them because they're only allowed to use that subsidy in a licensed setting. And as long as you keep this barrier in place, you are clearly saying it's not an option for kids who need a subsidy. It's just not. There's other issues too around safety. We want to be sure that anybody who's working with children understands developmentally appropriate practices and does have training to be in a fully outdoor setting. It's obviously very different. There's different risks involved. And so if these are already running, which they already exist, then we feel the state should and probably really wants to know who's working with children to protect and keep kids safe. So that safety piece matters. And then there's other issues around accessing services for kids who are, and families who are choosing these programs. Again, it's much more difficult to access the kind of services that you could readily have made available if you're in a licensed program. And so that's another piece. So there's a lot of, there's also the piece of every state has a different set of what constitutes care and what that threshold is. And if you are not following your state's definition around those laws, if you're operating too frequently, if you have not children in your care who are not your own children for X number of hours per week or per month, then you might be violating the law. So most of these programs, in order to not violate the law, they're only operating for a couple of hours at a time. So again, who gets to access that kind of care? Who's able to have their child in that kind of care for just 2 or 3 hours at a time? So that also is another barrier. So, it's a complicated, it's pretty
Yeah.
complex, but there are
Yeah.
many reasons why we
It's
wanted
a
this to be
clear
an option.
it's a clear equity issue. So that
Yeah.
is a big solution. So where are you currently in the process of getting this legislation? Has it been passed? I know that they're doing a pilot program, but I don't know where that is in the process.
Yeah, it was passed. So we passed House Bill 525 to
Wonderful.
establish an outdoor preschool licensing pilot. We did. It failed the first year, which was heartbreaking. And then we went back to the drawing board and we rallied, and got more people at the table. And yeah, it was passed in July 1st of 2023 was actually when it was enacted. And the pilot kicked off a process of first, there was an advisory group that we put together of about 10 organizations from different parts of the state running different types of programs to advise the Office of Child Care and the Maryland State Department of Ed. The Maryland State Department of Ed really wanted to develop regulations and then test them with pilot sites, right? That was a little different than our vision. Our vision was select the pilot sites, learn from them in the first year or two, and
Mm,
then determine what you want those regs to be. But the state
mhm,
saw it differently, and the state wanted to develop regulations first. And so we worked with the state for the first year, advising and really bringing them up to speed on what this even is and draft these regulations. Those were passed by the Board of Education in January of 2025. By and large, those regulations, I mean, we were pretty amazed and impressed at the openness and willingness to learn and understand why this mattered and how this could work by the State Department. Most of the regulations were, you know, just they passed what we knew we really needed, and we were really grateful for that. There are a couple though that are not workable, and so if 90% or 95% even are really excellent and exactly what they needed to be, there's still this piece that's left in place that we believe is going to present real challenges that are untenable. And so at the conclusion of the pilot and when the report, the evaluation process and then concluding report comes out, we believe that those findings will come to light, and then we'll have another opportunity to change those regulations and make sure that it can operate as smoothly as it can be. So as far as being in the process, we've drafted those regulations, those were put into action. The state opened the application process for any interested programs to join the pilot. They can take 5 to 10 based on the legislation. And sometime this fall, there are some sites that have been selected. Sometime this fall, they will have an orientation for those sites and then let us know when the pilot with the sites officially kicks off, when it officially starts, when it officially ends, and go from there. So, that's where we are. We have a little longer to go. There will be an interim report. There will be a final report once those pilot sites are up and running. So we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot from this
Yeah.
process. And other states since July 2023, when this was enacted, other states have done different approaches to getting outdoor preschools licensed. And rather than doing a pilot, some states have just changed the rules package that's part of their legislation. And when you have support, you're able to do that. And so there are others who have been able to do that. Personally, I think that it's going to be helpful for us to have the pilot sites, because even in whittling down the applicants, the state is already realizing that some of the rules they have in place have excluded groups that would
Yes.
like to have participated.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think that the pilot is going to give us really great results, and I'm glad that we're doing it that way.
Yeah. And I know a couple people who are going to be a part of the pilot. I also know people who aren't, for the reason that you stated. It's just it does cut some people out, some of the rules. I recall reading the regulations myself and being, like you said, pretty excited and surprised at some of the regulations around toileting and things like that. I thought myself about joining the pilot, and there are just a couple things that hold me back from doing that. But I am super thrilled to watch this all unfold and see how things land. This is going to be a really exciting opportunity for Maryland. So I want to really thank you for, I mean, your work is like, I don't know how many prongs. I don't know how you do it, but you're getting it from all ends, from the books that you're writing, the trainings that you are hosting, certifications that you are giving, to the boots on the ground with children, and also your work with the state. So I'm sure that the listeners are going to want to learn a lot more about your work and support your work. This is a nonprofit who we all know nonprofits need funding. So anybody that wants to support your work, um, whether it be financial or through activism, sharing your word, reading your books, can you please tell us how they can get in touch with you, where they can find you, and keep up with this lady?
I really appreciate you saying that. I really, really do. You can go to anb.org. That's the Association for Nature-Based Education. And there's lots of great training. We have memberships available for teachers or for schools, and that is one great way to support us. And of course, you can go to anb.org. If you are somebody who's in a position to give and you want to try to support our work in a bigger way, anb.org/donate. We certainly would appreciate anything anyone would like to share. And as far as the new book, I don't think it's at major booksellers just yet, but I know that it's on pre-order at naeyc.org under their resources. So I'm sure if you type in nature-based early childhood education or type in my name, the book will come up and you'll be able to order it on pre-order. It'll be out this fall.
And also, I believe you have an event coming up, right? You have an annual event
We
for your organization.
do.
Oh, tell us about that.
We do. We have an annual Night for Nature, which is a fundraiser on Friday, October the 17th. It's at Bordy Vineyards, which is a wonderful local vintner, and that is a lot of fun. So if you are in the area or you want to have a little road trip to Baltimore and come out and support us, that will be a beautiful, beautiful fall evening, and we would certainly love your support. So that's anb.org/NF Night for Nature, and that we do every year. And of course, there's teacher trainings because we're based in the greater Baltimore area. We do at least 1 or 2 trainings right here in the area annually, but look out for outdoor teacher retreats all over the country. We partner with people all over, and maybe we'll be coming to a town near you. So yeah, keep having a look back at amv.org.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you so much, Monica, for being here, and thank you so much for your work. It is it's immeasurable, and I'm grateful.
Thank you, Keisha. I feel the same way about you, by the way, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share what we're doing. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, and thank you everybody for listening to another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast. Bye bye.
And that was another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast. Defending the Early Years works to support the rights and needs of young children nationally. Learn more at DEY.org. Pay us a visit, sign up for our newsletter, or connect with us on social media. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.